Yep, they work.
Okay,
They make
good.
a difference. Thank you. I don't expect to have to, but it just, I so appreciate it. No, John, no, John. Oh,
Counselor,
yeah, that was really
how are
kind
you?
of you. And 2 minutes to spare. I wondered.
You set off work?
Oy.
We'll go, you want to go now? Or we got,
By the way,
okay.
I feel the need to apologize to everyone on those reviews. I was doing it on my iPad, and I will never do it that way again.
So I'm
I
going to
didn't know I
insert
had an
the bio
option,
break.
a hard copy. I couldn't sign my name. I couldn't get the
Well,
X's
it's
to go.
138
It was
pages,
just
so
horrendous.
let's do,
So,
we'll do it before the
well,
executive session, or
anyway,
That's a good idea.
that's the
Yeah.
last, first to last
that's going
time
to pay,
that I
40
do it
minutes,
that way.
right?
Yeah.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
We're missing some bodies. Well, at least, oh, that's right, Race on the Road. Race on the Road.
Is the light on? Thank you. The light is on. Welcome to the first hybrid meeting of the Albany City Council on July 14th, 2021 at 6 o'clock 6 p.m. It's our first, we include personal, in-person, and virtual participation. We thank you for your patience as we work through this process. We haven't done this in 16 months, so please bear with us. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. And stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I have a roll call vote. Roll call, please. Not vote, sorry. Roll call, please.
Olson,
Here.
Novak,
Here.
Bartholomew,
Here.
Kopsinski,
Here.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi, Ray.
Counselor Bessie Johnson. Here. Counselor Marilyn Smith.
Here.
Thank you.
And I'm here too. So we have public hearing, sale of the Surface, excuse me. Before we get started, we have a couple presentations. We are in the process, first, excuse me. I'd like to have a moment of silence for the two individuals, a Millersburg resident and an Albany resident that died on July 9th in a crash in Millersburg, Oregon. So we're gonna have 60 seconds of moment of silence. Thank you. The celebration of life for Matthew Irish will be this Saturday at their residence in Millersburg. If you want the address, please let me know. And August 1st for Charles Kaiser at Timberland Park at noon. So next on the agenda will be a special presentation for someone that I hold dear in my heart. Ralph Gata is a OSAA softball umpire, and he won the Umpire of the Year award. And so if Ralph can join myself and John Garrett down front, please, I'd greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to tell a story about Ralph. So Ralph Gata has been umpiring softball for long. So two days. And so when I first started umpiring softball 12 years ago, Ralph was my mentor. Ralph spent a lot of years with Ralph. He built Texas softball from Cascade. That's the slow boy thing. Cascade. We did 3 games in a day. They turned into a Ralph
Could ask Jeff Blaine to come forward.
Oh, okay.
Just want to say thank you to Council Curran and staff for our great deal of support, encouragement, and patience. Working with many of you for several years as staff. Thank you.
Same to you.
So thank you very much for your patience. And Jeff, good luck in your future career, and I will see you over in Corvallis sometime for coffee. Okay.
Mayor,
you wanna read?
Mayor, before you start, may I have a few
Yes.
words?
So the city manager's going to give us a few words about what we're going through and what we're doing now.
Well, I wanted to welcome everybody back. It's great to see the council sitting here in their seats, and it's great to see the public out here. It's been 16 months since we last met in the council chambers. And for some of our councilors, this is their first time in their seats. And for the mayor, who is now an expert, as I said, at Zoom meetings, this is his first night on the dais as the mayor. The staff have worked on many changes to hardware, software, furniture, and to procedures. Some changes are noticeable, and others are invisible. You won't see them. We hope that everything will go smoothly tonight, but we expect that there may be the occasional hiccup. So I would ask in advance for your patience and understanding as all of us get used to meeting in person again. The hybrid meeting capability that we developed over the last year has advantages which will extend into the future and will get better over time at using this technology. The bottom line tonight, I'm grateful that we're back here in person, without masks, with vaccinations available, and living in Albany. So, Mayor, back to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I echo his sentiments. I am excited about this, and somebody's got some loud stuff going on up there. I am quite nervous, so bear with me. I'll get through this. All right, thank you. So the next on the agenda is public hearings. Item A is sale of surplus property adjoining 1207 9th Avenue. Ron Irish? And so, do you have people sign up? One person? Okay. We've had one person sign up, Mr. Ron Brockman. So I'll go ahead and do this first. I have to do this here, right? Okay, I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:09 PM. So, Ron, staff report?
Go ahead and keep reading below. You open the public hearing and then,
Oh, I declare the public hearing open at 6:09 PM. There was one written testimony, Mr. Ron Brockman at 1207 9th Avenue Southeast. He's the buyer. So, Mr. Brockman, should I have Mr. Brockman go first, or should I have Ron Irish go first?
Ron could go ahead and go first, so long as you are sure to close the public hearing at some point. And I think Mr. Brockman was here only if you had questions.
Okay,
Yeah, we need to hear what it's
So-
all about.
Mr. Brockman, Mr. Irish?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to be back. Mic working?
No, doesn't sound.
I don't think so.
Try the other one.
It's not nice to be back.
Same old, same old.
We'll figure it out, folks.
Now it's,
There you go.
now it's nice to be back. So this past June, staff came to you with a discussion about a piece of property the city owns that's located on the west side of Oak, just north of 9th Avenue. It's a narrow piece of property. It's about 104 feet long. It varies in, but averages about 14 feet. Was acquired by the city back when Oak Avenue was extended between 9th and Pacific. It's a residual piece of property from what we needed for the street. Really doesn't have any independent ability to be developed. It's too narrow, too small. It's only there because it's a rent of that larger parcel we got to extend the street. Been a bit of a maintenance problem for the city over time. It's pretty much just weeds and dirt. The property that adjoins it to the west is the radio station site. Staff has been in discussion with that property owner over the past several months about redeveloping that. One of the problems they have is their parking lot circulation and access. And it occurred to us in the discussions with that property owner that this city-owned sliver could be of some value to them in developing the site. That sliver's, as I mentioned before, not much use to anybody else. So we had discussions with the property owner about whether or not it might be valuable, and we all concluded that it probably would. We had some discussions about how that could happen, and we initially talked about easements. And the discussion we had in front of council back in June was, in fact, whether you wanted to hold a public hearing to convey an easement. Your decision back then was that you did, but that your preference was that as opposed to an easement, you prefer to just sell the property so that it went back onto the tax rolls. And so that's the public hearing tonight. The property total, 1,474 square feet. The proposed sale price that we have from the offer from the owner, adjoining owner, is $1,897.75. If you have additional questions for me before you want to get into the public hearing, I can try and answer them. Otherwise, I'll be quiet.
Council? Any questions? Councilor Olson?
Yeah, is it possible for the staff to show what we're talking about on the screen?
Yeah.
It's page 9 on the agenda.
It's possible, but I didn't set it up that way. I didn't realize we had that ability, and so I didn't give it to our IT staff in time. So it may just be that you have the attachments, but on your packet, but we don't have them to show on the screen.
Yeah, can't show the packet on the screen
I don't believe so.
yet. Okay.
Did anyone have any questions for Mr. Brockman that signed up to speak? Council?
I was just going to say that I think this is a a good sale because now the property that's actually on one of our main streets will be improved. And so I think this is a great thing to do.
You have something, Councilor Olson?
No, I was just wondering if
Well,
some
she wa-
message
yeah,
said
couldn't hear you.
microphone works.
So we're working the bugs out, so we'll get it fixed. No questions from Mr. Brockman? I declare the public meeting closed at time 6:14.
We have nobody from the public?
There was no questions for him. Did you want to speak, Ron? So nobody wants to speak. He signed up, but for questions only. So the meeting's closed at 6:14. Council, would like to make a motion?
I would move to sell the property to Mr. Brockman as outlined in the staff report.
Seconded.
Do we have a resolution for that?
Resolution's coming. It is on page. It's on page.
5.
Page 5. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, council? Councilor Novak, any discussion?
No.
No?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Where's Councilor Kopsinski? He must have dropped off. Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. So there's another public hearing coming up for North Point. So I declare the North Point public hearing open at 6:16 p.m. Next on tonight's agenda is a public hearing and sale of surplus property adjoining North Point. Directions for how to testify and submit written materials will be published in the council agenda. And so we had two people sign up for the Mr. Todd Thompson and Mrs. Lisa Thompson. Okay, I declare the public meeting open. We've done that. There's no written material submitted. I didn't see anything written. Does the staff have a report?
Sure. Good evening, and so lovely to see you all in person. So I brought forth a couple months ago our request to surplus 2 properties as identified in the 2021 master plan. North Point property, which is 4.5 undeveloped acres up in North Albany of Hickory and Ritters. And the other one is Hazelwood. I'm bringing back tonight North Point as we had an interested party, the Thompsons, who are here this evening, and they put together their proposal. Since we had spoken about it so recently, I didn't want to put together another major presentation. So I'm here to answer any questions, as well as the Thompsons are available. Did you have any questions? Their proposal was very thorough, and as staff, we recommend council approve it on through.
Any questions for the Thompsons?
I would just comment that I think this is about the best resolution that could happen with this property. It's going to a loving home.
I agree.
Okay. So I declare, yes.
Your Honor?
Oh, sorry, Bessie, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just
Councilor.
saying, and I disagree. I think that the property is more of a value, and what a buyer is going to spend on a property shouldn't bear anything on what they think they should pay for it or whatever. You know, you buy it and you do with what you want. But the $75,000, that is well under the real market value. And it's working now. And so, you know, to use it for refuge and stuff, they got East Thornton Lake or West Thornton Lake for the animals to go to and stuff. And I just feel that for the city to just sell a valued property for well under value is the wrong thing to do.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Any other councilors have a comment?
I don't know. I think I appreciated the way it was laid out. I like the idea that it can't be developed anyway. And so to my mind, to request to use this property for the wildlife, because that's all it's really good for, and to pay for it, even if it's, I don't know what the actual value is, but to my mind, this is good. No one else has stepped up to pay for it, and there it sits. I think it's a winning proposal, quite honestly. And I would be opposed to asking them to pay more than what's outlined here, unless you can give me really good grounds for why they should, because I think it's good.
Councilor Olson?
Yes, I'd agree with that, and I'd also like to add that I like to keep the density in North Albany as low as we possibly can. Our traffic experts tell us that we are approaching gridlock, and it'll probably happen in 2 or 3 years if we don't do something about the intersection there with Spring Hill Road and Highway 20. And even if we do something at that intersection, we'll probably have gridlock within 7 or 8 years. So combine that with the wisdom or lack thereof of Tina Kotek and her thugs in Salem, who would like to see North Albany have about 3 times as many people. I'm all in favor of keeping this little wild spot for wildlife and a place where perhaps the people in the neighborhood can enjoy some free space other than heavy-duty traffic. So I'm all in favor of the proposal of the Thompsons, I believe, to buy the property for what the price they're offering.
Any other counselor? You have a comment, Director?
Oh, sorry, no.
Okay. Counselor Bartholomew?
I just would like to know a little bit more about the conservation easement that you're going to be putting on the property. Could you talk to that?
Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, please. Can we get her, grab her another chair, please? Thank you very much.
I'm not sure the mechanics of how that would work, but there is a conservation easement on an adjacent property that seems reasonable to put on this property too. I don't know if the city does that as they sell it, or if we do that, we buy it. But yeah, we would, so that a future owner of the property could not develop it.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
We need to do a little more understanding of how does that happen? How do we create that?
Yeah, I think more information would be
Maybe staff
very
has a
good.
comment?
We'll got to get used to this thing. I'd ask if Matthew Rutgers can comment on it now. If not, we can certainly get back to you. The sale, I don't think, is contingent upon a conservation easement, so that's something we can address later. But Matthew, if you have something to add, please feel free.
Is he going to be on the record if he doesn't speak into the mic?
You got a microphone.
So if the city or if the council decides that they'd like to see a conservation easement placed on the property, we can, the city can certainly make that requirement prior to the sale. Conservation easement is something that obviously staff can prepare something like that and place the easement on prior to the sale, or make it as part of the agreement of the sale itself. So, obviously it's not something that we write conservation easements every single day, but it's certainly something that we can look at ones that have been done and find something that's reasonable. Very confident if we kind of know what the council are, if it's really just a conservation easement that would prevent any future development of that land. If we know that goal going into it, we can prepare the easement based on that.
Thank you, because that would, that's the objective, and if we're going to move forward in that direction, we want to make sure that it's in place, in my opinion.
So I have a question. Is that something we can do after the sale, Matthew?
Well, if it's kind of a condition of the sale, it's really, it's council's choice, really, if we want to place the easement on it while the city still owns the property, or we just make that a condition of the sale, that once the sale occurs, that the I didn't catch the last name, Thompsons, agree that they place the easement on there. You know, the safest bet would be for the city to go ahead and place the easement on the property and then make the sale. But that doesn't necessarily need to hold up a decision tonight. If the council wants to make the decision to sell the property, you can provide staff direction to go ahead and move forward with the sale of the property with a condition that a conservation easement be placed on it prior to the sale.
Thank you. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm great. Thank
Council, you guys comfortable with that? With the easement?
Sounds good to me. Does that sound good to you?
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay. So I should close the public hearing now, correct?
Yes, please.
Wait.
Your Honor, hold on.
Oh, Councilor Johnson
I was
has a
gonna say-
question or comment?
I talked about the value. Benton County had the real market value at $332,000. So you sell it for $75,000, it's got to be, apparently it's worth something. And to just sell it for way less than it's valued at, I think there is something, we've done landlocked properties before, and we've made it work. So I just think that this is, it's taken away tax value, and of course, now they're not paying anything because the city owns it. But I think it's just not the right thing to do. Again, the city's going to give away property. I just don't like that.
Do you think the assessor has seen the waste chunks of concrete and the hole there that's full of water and so forth?
I don't know.
I'll bet they haven't. I'll bet they're basing it on the other pieces of property that have been sold for development.
Could do. I don't know.
I would bet.
Go ahead, City Manager.
Try to do this without scaring anybody, but I think it's important to remember that the appraised and assessed value that exists now that you refer to is without a conservation easement on the property. So when there's a conservation easement on the property, it can no longer be developed. Much of its value goes away.
Yeah, and I just feel that, for one thing, the city shouldn't put the conservation easement on. I think if somebody's going to buy the property for less than it's valued at, that they should take on any cost that happens.
Question.
Go ahead,
Am
Council.
I understanding correctly that this property can't be developed? It's not, the way it's, where it is and what it is, it's not able to be developed, correct? It's not like, I just want to be clear, my understanding of what I've read here is it's not like they're going to buy it for a lesser value and then develop it themselves. It's not, am I understanding this correctly?
Sure. So part of the reason why it came up on surplus to begin with is because it would have been very difficult for us to even develop as a park space that would be usable, not necessarily a large liability. And so in the conversations and chatting and having the there come out, it would be very, very difficult to have any sort of development take place there. And as a result, the conservation area and the natural space is a best use for the space and one that is actually doable.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, now can I close the public hearing? Is there any other comments? I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
One more question.
Oh, one more question.
Is there any public access, public right-of-way to that property that connects that to a public street?
There is a gravel drive that isn't necessarily advertised, but if folks are walking through, they can definitely find their way through that. We have no signage marking that it is city property at this point, that it's a park or that it's, public space. So it not much would potentially change.
So there's no sign that says "big hole in the ground this way"? Thank you.
Thank you.
I tried to access it by car, and I couldn't find it.
It'd be a walking path.
I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:29. Councilors, what would you like to do? Is there a motion?
do we need a resolution to move on this idea, or can we just say we want to sell
I didn't see a resolution in the
it? I
packet.
didn't either.
So
You
Mary,
can
is
use
there
a motion. You can just make a motion without the resolution.
The motion's been,
No, just a motion to sell the property. I would so move.
so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Does your motion include the easement?
Pardon me?
You want to add the easement? The conservation?
Oh,
easement?
yes, with the conservation easement.
And is that prior to the sale or after the sale?
Contingent
I'd like to see it be part of the sale. That way it'll be,
in place, yeah.
So
in
staff to take care of it?
place.
Okay.
With the city bearing the expense?
Pardon me?
With the city bearing the expense?
Will that be part of the sale, wouldn't it?
Oh, what?
The expense of the easement?
No. Counselor Johnson, what is, you're asking if it's going to cost money to create a conservation easement? It'll take some staff time.
I believe staff time is the only
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, now it's only staff time, and before it's like, oh my God, it's taking staff time, so.
So there would be some staff time associated with actually creating the easement document itself, and then the recording fees with the county. I think the recording fees would be under $100.
Oh, well, I just think it's still the buyer.
So can I ask the question, would the buyer be willing to pay the easement fee? That takes care of that.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second.
Can
Councilor,
can I read the motion just to be clear?
please.
The motion is to sell the property with the easement already in place, and that's been made and seconded.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is Councilor?
Aye.
Oh, does that Councilor
Excuse me.
Kupczynski?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Those
Did
opposed,
you-
same sign?
I'm sorry, did you say with the easement in place?
Yes, with the easement in place. Olson's motion included to have the easement in place prior to the sale.
But then the buyers just said that they'd do it, so.
No, they said
No.
they pay for it.
No, what the buyer agreed to was to pay the $100, I think it was, in terms of a fee for a conservation easement. But the motion, I think, has been to authorize the city to sell the property along with the conservation easement as part of the purchase and sale agreement. Is that correct?
And perhaps I should have included saying the price offered by the Thompsons.
So should he update the motion?
The motion is to sell the property with the easement already in place for the price proposed.
With the conservation easement.
That's what she said that. So we had a motion and a second?
Correct.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign?
Aye.
That was 5 yes and 1 no. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Property vacations, Matthew Rutgers, page 15 through 74. There's 4 resolutions on the vacation of Sunrise Elementary School paths, VC-01-20. Item 2 is vacation of 13th Avenue Southwest, VC-02-20. Number 3 is vacation of Price Road Southeast, vacation number is 03-20. And number 4 will be vacation of alley between Hill Street Southeast and Madison Street Southeast, VC 01-20. Okay. And no one signed up to talk. Next, so that'll be a public hearing starting at 6:33 p.m. Okay. Mary? Okay. So if you wish to testify, no one signed up to talk. Do any members declare a conflict of interest? No one declared? Do any members wish to report any ex parte contact?
I've walked my dog on some of these paths.
Okay. Okay.
It was a one-time deal.
So you're gonna have to do the next one too then. So does any member wish to report a site visit?
Like he said.
Okay. Does any members wish to abstain from participating in the proceedings? No abstentions? Does any member wish to challenge the city council's right to determine this matter or the participation of any council member in the hearing and decision? If so, please turn on your camera and or raise your hand to be called upon. Or if you are attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name so you can be called upon. Nothing's popping up. At this meeting, I call for a reading of the meeting procedures. So I need to read this whole thing?
So that would be,
Go
Your
ahead.
Honor. So, good evening, Mayor and Council, again. At this time, I'll read the meeting procedures. For those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford City Council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise the issue on appeal. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the approval standards staff described or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to the decision. If
Yeah.
additional documents
Your
are
Honor,
I can't hear you.
I'm wondering if the audience can hear what you're
I
saying.
can't hear it.
I can
can't
just
either.
barely hear
Can you
you.
do a mic check?
And,
You have to eat the
All right,
mic.
is this better?
Much better.
That's better.
Okay. I just needed to be closer. So if additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the city council may allow a continuance record open to allow parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to the proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
Thank you very much. At this time, I call for the staff report from Community Development Director Matthew Rutgers.
Thank you, Mayor. So, back in September of 2001, staff presented a proposal involving vacation of 4 pedestrian pathways in the Sunrise area, with 2 pathways off of Madison Street and the remaining 2 proposed vacations off of Lafayette. And then again in November of 2020, at a city council work session, staff presented 3 additional right-of-way vacations at various locations, which I'll discuss here in a little bit. All 4 vacations are subject to a Type 4 Q application review process as described in Article 1, Section 1.250 of Albany Development Code. This process includes 2 public hearings. On June 14th of 2021, the Planning Commission held a duly advertised public hearing, voted in support of recommendations that the City Council approve all 4 vacation proposals. So at this time, I'll kind of step through the 4 proposals that we've got. And I apologize if I'm a little slow on this. We do a test. So this is on your screen, you'll see the first of the 4 vacations. This is a pedestrian pathway vacations. These are 4 pedestrian pathways that were created with the plat back when these lots were done. 2 of the pathways off of Lafayette Street lead to the Sunrise School. Those pathways are proposed to be vacated. In discussion with GAPS, don't want the connections anymore. They really try to limit connections in the school to 1 location. So up until, currently these pathways are dead-ended and don't go anywhere, which ends up can be a problem in the neighborhood with people doing things that they shouldn't do in pathways or vacant pathways. The other 2 pathways off of Madison Street were never, the right-of-ways are there, but the pathways were never actually built or open. So if you were to drive out there looking for them, you probably would not find them. It looks like just yard area. So as I step through these, if you have questions on any particular ones, feel free to interrupt me. So the next one we've got is a right-of-way vacation over off of 13th Avenue. This is as part of the Tahkeena Estate subdivision that was done about 2 or 3 years ago. There was a piece of right-of-way that was just kind of left over and wasn't needed. So this is just really a cleanup item. Vacating that, the vacated right-of-way would actually get rolled into the existing lots that are out there. The next piece of right-of-way is also kind of a cleanup item. This is on just off of Price Road over by Timberland Park. This was an old extension that was never actually built and just isn't needed right away. So it was an opportunity to get it and clean that up. And the last of our vacations was actually came to us through a petition of the neighboring properties. This is an alley between Hill Street and Madison Street and 12th and 13th Avenue. It's currently an unopened alley. It does have a city sewer line in it, but other than that, it's mostly just blackberries and some have actually been used by the neighboring properties. The neighbors actually, in working with them, petitioned to have the alley vacated, which we had discussed in November or September, I believe it was, or no, it was in November. Which time the council directed us to move with it and bring it back, and that's what we're here to do tonight. This is the actual public hearing for that. So with that, council has three options with respect to the proposed vacations. Approve as proposed, approved with any proposed changes, or deny them. Based on the analysis of the staff report, staff recommends council approve all four vacations. And if city council accepts this recommendation, there's action in your packet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Director Ruckers. Council, do you have any, do any council members have any clarifying questions regarding the staff report?
I just would have a question about the utility easements that are in those properties. A few of them, those would be maintained as they are now.
Correct. There are in two of the locations in their vacations, one of them being the one that's on your screen right now, where a sewer line. Anywhere we've got a city utility, we are going to maintain or keep a utility easement over those locations.
We have examples of that particular scenario all over town with a sewer line that runs right down the middle of blocks.
Correct.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to run backyard sewers.
Yeah.
Those have to be challenging to maintain.
Yeah.
Any other councilors have any questions? Councilor Olson?
Yes. Particularly item 1 and item 4, the one about Sunrise School and its paths, and the one about the alleyway between Hill and Madison. Did the neighbors request these vacations?
So specifically for the pathways and for the alley vacations, those were asked for by the neighbors. So weren't ones that, the other two items were ones that staff were cleanup items that we suggested doing.
Yeah.
These other two were actually requested by the adjoining property owners.
Well, I'm thinking particularly the first one, the Sunrise Elementary School. If you had some kids in these apartment houses on, it's between Madison and the next street over. It's not labeled on this map. But if those pathways were there, they could cut through and they could walk to school. If we close these, or if you can't walk through them now, I would guess that a parent is going to have to put them in a car and drive them around down to 19th Street and down to whatever street it is on the other side of Clay Street, maybe, on the other side of Sunrise School. And so you have a whole lot more cars driving kids to school rather than kids walking to school. So do they want these closed because ne'er-do-well kids are beating up on other kids?
So
Or does junk accumulate in there, or what?
So in particular, the pathways off Madison, those were never actually built. The right-of-way are there, but there's no improvements. It's actually, if you were to go out and look at them, it just looks like somebody's yard. They're landscaped. There's no indication of a pathway there. The other two off of Lafayette have been built. There's an asphalt pathway there, and it's gated at the school property. And the school, as we reached to not only the school, but the police department, we're in support of closing these. The school, because they didn't want the additional access point, they want the kids coming into the front doors off of, what is that, 19th? And the police department, with these being closed pathways, they get nefarious activities that occur in there, and the neighbors indicated that as
Well, I'm not too surprised because we've had complaints about this kind of planning, that these pathways where there's no ability for a vehicle to drive through, they really don't serve. And I hope the planners take note, and rather than having these tremendously long blocks with no way to get from one side to the other, really should be put in the dustbin of history, and I hope we don't do them anymore. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Olson. Any other counselors have any?
Yeah.
Counselor Johnson?
I mean, I think it's been a long time since we discussed this, and I was just thinking with the one at Sunrise School, isn't there a fence, closing it off so that people can't get through it anyway? And I remember at the time I asked, well, same thing Counselor Olson said, you have to let people through, but they thought it was a safety issue and that they would rather keep the fence up so that the people who don't belong there don't just come on the schoolyard. So if that's my recollection, okay, great.
correct. When we
Yeah.
talked to the school district, they had no inclination to reopen those that are currently fenced
I
off.
can imagine, yeah, it's just one more entryway that they
Yep.
have to watch. All right, thank you.
Counselors? Counselor Smith? Counselor Smith?
There are some other pathways like this south of 34th Avenue that connect Thurston and Madison. Are there any proposals? Those are the ones I'm familiar with. Are those being considered for, those are developed, those are paved and skinny and mean dogs live on both sides of the fences in some places.
I haven't.
Mentioned those, they get used, I believe.
If these were really being closed or vacated because they were dead-ended and not being used, as far as some of the other pedestrian pathways that provide this opportunity, as Councilor Olson suggested, a connection into other streets. With these in particular, the pathways aren't constructed off of Madison, even if they were, with the school and school district not wanting those off of Lafayette opened, kids would, even if they cut through on that pathway, if it were to be built, would still have to go up to 19th and come around. But for other pathways, like you indicated, Counselor Smith, if they're currently being used, there's no proposal vacating these. These were just being vacated because they're not being used.
In one of the community cleanups that we did back in, I believe, 2013, the paths along Madison, the Lafayette Street ones, were part of the cleanup project, and it was a pretty intense bushwhacking exercise because nobody had been through there for a very long time.
Yeah, and there is a path connection that actually runs, you can see it towards the bottom of your screen, that connects Lafayette and Madison. That will remain open, and the neighborhood actually said we want to make sure that remains open.
Excellent. Any other counselors? Thank you, Counselor Smith. Any other counselors have anything?
That's a great
Okay.
idea.
So number 11 on here says we will now take take testimony from the applicant. Well, there's no applicant, correct? The applicant's the city. Would the applicant please state your name, and make any comments you would like to have for the council. Item 12, those who registered to speak, no one registered to speak. I still have to read this, right, even though no one's,
You should.
yeah. I was gonna make sure. Those who registered to speak during this meeting will be called upon to present verbal testimony. As a reminder, we are conducting a concurrent public hearing for all 4 street vacations applications as mentioned. The chair will call for public testimony on each application, starting with VC-01-20, ending with VC-04-20. We'll start by receiving testimony for planning file VC-01-010 pedestrian path right-of-way vacations for 4 paths east of Sunrise Elementary School, adjacent to Madison Street Southeast and Lafayette Street Southeast.
See, this public hearing was advertised, wasn't it? Within so many feet of the proposed closures,
Correct.
and nobody seems to care.
There was a public notice for all 4 of these and prior to the planning commission.
Is anyone on virtual that's interested in speaking?
There was no one who signed up virtually, and then I handed you 4 of the registration sheets that were at the table.
Yep, there's nothing here.
And there's nothing there. So yes, there was 2 opportunities on each of these. So I don't know that you need to read them all. I would defer to Matthew there.
Okay,
But there was no one signed up to speak virtually, and there was no one in the audience that would like to speak.
okay, thank you. Is the city attorney online with us? Okay, who's going to read the resolutions, and ordinances when we get to them? No?
The,
Okay,
the ordinance does not have to be read by the city attorney, so if Sean is not available, we were wondering if Peter might like
Yeah.
to do that.
okay, so let me get through this and I'll get to you. We will start by receiving testimony on VC, I already read that one. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify at VC-01-20? Not seeing anyone. Next, we will be receiving testimony for the planning file VC-02-01-0220, a street right-of-way, vacation of excess right-of-way on 13th Avenue Southwest in Takena Estates subdivision. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify on VC-02-20? No one signed up to speak. Next, we'll be receiving testimony for planning file VC-03-20, a street right-of-way vacation for the excess right-of-way on Price Road Southeast in Timberland Park. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to testify on VC-03-20? Lastly, we'll be receiving testimony for planning file VC-04-20, a right-of-way vacation for alley from 12th Avenue Southeast to 13th Avenue Southeast on Hill Street Southeast and Madison Street Southeast. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to testify on VC-04-20?
I've got a question.
Councilor Olson has a question?
Does the property in the alley then revert back to the neighboring properties?
That's correct. Depending on how the right-of-way was created, and in this case, being created on by a plat, the property will revert from center line back to the adjacent property.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any rebuttal testimony? There was no speaking, no one there applying for this. Does any staff member wish to respond to any testimony presented? There was none. Does anyone have procedural questions they would like to raise at this time? If so, please turn on your camera or raise your hand to be called upon. Or if you're attending by phone, please unmute yourself, state your name so the chair can call upon you to speak. I have nothing. At this time, I declare this public hearing closed at 6:52 p.m. Does the city council wish to discuss this case or these cases or ask any questions of staff? Questions have been asked? Fantastic. There are four ordinances for your consideration in the council packet. City manager, would you please read the first resolution at this time, in title only? Ordinance, excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, an ordinance vacating 4 pedestrian rights-of-way east of Sunrise Elementary School, adjacent to Lafayette Street and Madison Street in Albany, Oregon.
I'd move for the second reading of the ordinance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, do I have a second read ordinance? All those in favor?
Aye.
An ordinance vacating 4 pedestrian rights-of-way east of Sunrise Elementary School, adjacent to Lafayette Street and Madison Street in Albany, Oregon.
Move for the adoption of the ordinance?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. The decision of the city council may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals by filing a formal notice of intent to appeal no later than 21 days after the decision becomes final. So we go back to the next ordinance. So, city attorney or city manager, read the ordinance for the first time in title only. We have to do all four individually.
Okay. An ordinance vacating 4.54 feet of excess right-of-way on the north side of 13th Avenue west of Hop Street in Albany, Oregon.
I'd move for the second reading of the ordinance.
So we have a motion to read the second reading of the ordinance.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
An ordinance vacating 4.54 feet of excess right-of-way on the north side of 13th Avenue west of Hop Street in Albany, Oregon.
Move that the ordinance be read a second time in title only.
It's already been read. in
It's already been
second
read
time. Would you
second
like to
time.
make a motion to adopt it?
Yeah.
Do you have a motion to adopt it?
Sure.
The ordinance?
So moved.
Move. Okay.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Ordinance passes. The city attorney will read, the city manager will read the ordinance for the first time in title only.
An ordinance vacating unused Price Road southeast right-of-way within Timberland Park in Albany, Oregon.
Is there a motion to read the ordinance the second time in title only?
Move to read the ordinance a second time in title only.
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
An ordinance vacating unused Price Road southeast right-of-way within Timberland Park in Albany, Oregon.
Move to adopt the ordinance.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Is that the fourth one or the third one?
That's the third one.
That's the third one.
That was number 3.
The city attorney will read the ordinance for the first time in title only.
I'm asking for the city attorney's pay next.
At least lunch.
An ordinance vacating the alley in Block 6 of Winona Park subdivision in Albany, Oregon.
Is there a motion to read the ordinance the second time in title only?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
An ordinance vacating the alley in Block 6 of Winona Park subdivision in Albany, Oregon.
Move to adopt the ordinance.
Is there a
Seconded.
second? Motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Decision, this is all four of them. Decision of the city council may be appealed to Land Use Board of Appeals by filing a notice of intent to appeal no later than 21 days after decision becomes final. Go back to the agenda. Okay, next on the agenda is business from the public.
Your Honor, could I make a suggestion? I know that the microphones are intimidating to some people and stuff, but I can hardly hear the motions and things like that. So we have to almost
Lean
eat
into
the
them.
microphone to make sure it's heard, because if you watch this on YouTube, you can't hear it. So I appreciate that.
Thanks for the reminder.
So let's lean into the microphone. Is that better?
Yeah. That's better, yes.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, as long as you're up there, yeah. It's too easy to lean back and talk.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Business from the public is item 4 on the agenda. Business from the public is for persons wishing to address the city council, the council. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the mayor. Those who have registered online will be acknowledged first and followed by those who register in person in the meeting. No one signed up online. Councilors should hold their comments until business from the council. There are no written materials submitted, and only one person has signed up to speak, and that is Willard Hyde. Would you please come up? Thank you, sir. Can you tell us your name and why you're here to speak with us this evening?
You need to speak into the mic.
Yeah.
I don't think the mic is
Just
turned
pull
off.
it to you.
There.
Nope.
Pull it closer to you.
My name is Willard Hyde.
There you go.
I live on 2020 15th Avenue Southwest. And I came here because of the a $9 fee being utilities. And being disabled, I don't have an income. Already $80 a month is quite a bit for water and sewer. And that's all that's all I get. Public Works is water and sewer. The street sweepers don't even come down on my street. Come down too hot and then turn. They don't come down 15 Southwest. They say it's because we don't have a curb, that curb. We do on one side of the street. The other side does not have. The Kena properties that are being developed there, they put a curb and widened my street. I lost 20 foot of my front yard. It used to be a single lane road, now paved with parking on two sides and still room for two cars to pass. And I don't feel that there's nobody living on the other one side of me. There's a new house being built on the other side of me. And so I don't think anybody else can be offended by it. Even the stormwater from the city, there's no water on my property that goes into any of the city right as far as the sewer and stuff. And I'm being charged for stormwater drainage too. All my stormwater is into the ground. And so I'm trying to relieve myself of some of the bills that are taking, I could use for food or fuel. I drive at least once or twice a month to Portland to the VA hospital. And so I need money for gas there. And it just, I don't feel that the city takes the individuals into consideration when they pass these things.
So do you have something, City Manager?
I was just going to ask, sir, if you've been in touch with the Community Services Consortium for assistance?
No.
Okay, I'll give you a business card and we'll be happy to set you up with a meeting with them.
Okay.
Get some help.
And so we did, sir, when we did put together, when it was put together, there are methodologies to help you with your situation. So it's case by case, and so the city manager will help you with that.
Okay.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I would like to make a comment in regard to what Mr. Hyde just said, if this is permissible.
No, during business from the council.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, council should hold their comments to business from the council. There were no written materials submitted. No one signed, only one person signed to speak, now is Mr. Hyde. Okay, did that. Did that. Adoption of a resolution repealing Resolution 2909, residency requirement for department directors. Mary Dibble will be speaking to that.
Good evening, councilors. This is coming to you at your request. You've recently approved an exception to our resolution number 2909, and you asked us to bring back a formal resolution that removes the requirement for residency for department directors. The resolution is before you, just asking for your approval.
Can we have some discussion, please?
Of course.
I have a question with regard to this. Are we, in repealing this resolution, are we saying that it's all right for department directors to live outside the city of Albany? Because I take great exception with that. To my mind, anyone who's a department director should live in this city and be subject to all laws, resolutions, for instance, the city services fee that we just passed. I do not feel like it's appropriate or at all in any way right for someone to be a leader in this city, a department head, and to not be subject to every fee, every levy, every fine, every law, every rule, everything that we pass that they're a part of, that they're upholding when they work here. I very much object to that. So thank you very much. I don't know if anyone will agree with me on that ground, but I just think it's wrong. If you're going to be a department head in the city of Albany being paid by the citizens of this city, I think you need to live in the city, if for no other reason than the fact that we're paying your salary and you need to be subject to everything that the other citizens of this city are subject to. Thank you.
Would you extend that to all city employees?
No.
I'd like to discuss that, potentially, yeah. I think so. I don't know. I haven't given that a thought, but I do think that as heads of departments, it's not right for them not to live under the same rules that everyone else here lives under. I just feel like that's not right.
I disagree.
And you're welcome to.
So, Counselor Johnson, you have something?
Yeah, I will say I have received phone calls and input from citizens, and they're kind of thinking the same way, that if possible, they should live here. Now, the way the rule is now, if you're hired and you live outside of the city, that's okay, but if you move, then you have to move into the city. And so that's the way it's been, and but people have said, no, I don't think you should change that. I think it should be a requirement, because maybe for the same reason that Councilor Novak was saying. I don't know. It's one of those things where half of this and half of that. I know Chief Harnden had a special issue, with where she was buying, and I know right now the housing market is just sky high, and you have to kind of bid for it, and then you bid twice as much, and you still lose it. So, I'm not sure. I mean, if it's something that we can get more input on, maybe that would be the thing to do. I don't know.
So, City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff Blaine, whom we just honored here tonight, is going to be a department director in Corvallis, and he lives in Albany. He's not required to live in Corvallis. No other city in Oregon requires department heads to live within their city. It's an antiquated policy, and frankly, it gets in the way of recruiting. We're going to be recruiting an HR director here. We are right now. And to be able to do that, the resolution actually says within the urban growth boundary, not within the city limits. Mm-hmm. But any department head anywhere is subject to that city's laws, that city's fees, that city's taxes, as any department head from another city that happens to live in Albany is subject to ours. So it's really not fair to look that myopically at somebody that lives here. Now, I will say that it is required within the charter, I believe, that the city manager live here, and I think that's thoroughly appropriate. But you're talking about cities and mobility in the 21st century where employees, not just department directors, but all employees can move, and they ought to be allowed, in my mind, to seek the best place where they can live, as long as they can report to work on time and be there as they should be. So this really just brings us up to the 21st century and puts us on a par with all other cities in Oregon.
Any other counselors? Counselor Olson?
Yeah. I may be wrong. I didn't research it, but I think when I was on the council in the 70s, a long time ago now, I think we required all city employees to live inside the city limits. And I very much do think that department heads ought to be required to live inside the city limits.
City or urban growth boundary?
I'd like to see them live inside the city limits. And we stretched that a while back so they could live within the urban growth boundary. But if you live in the city limits, you pay the city property tax. And it's considerably higher than it is in the urban growth boundary. And for one, I'd like to see them pay their fair share, because we do pay our city employees quite well, I think. And but the other thing is, I think our city employees, and particularly our city department heads, ought to show a love for the city, as explained in the book that our city manager gave us a couple months ago. And I did read the book, and I think that had a lot to say, that cities where people love their city, you find a lot of volunteers, you find a lot of good things happening in those cities. And I guess you can't legislate love necessarily, but I think that I'm going to vote no on this resolution, because I don't think we'd want to hire somebody that says, yes, I'd like to work for your city, but I want to live in Eugene. Or I'd like to work for your city, but boy, I'd sure rather live in Portland. And if we pass this resolution, that'd be possible. Now, if we leave things the way they are, and somebody says, well, you know, I've got this really nice place, it's close to Albany, it's not, and could I please live there and not have to move? And I think we could give them that dispensation on an individual case, if that individual case made sense. And the person made a good or a reasonable argument, and we were sold enough on that person that, boy, we'd really like to hire that person. So I'm going to vote no on this resolution.
Is there any other staff, council comments?
Yes,
Yes,
Your Honor.
go ahead.
When I was involved.
Microphone.
Thank you. When I was involved as a city employee on the emergency management
I
response
still can't hear
efforts.
you.
Yeah, I don't think it's on, Mary.
Okay. When I was a city employee, I was a member of the executive management team for emergency incidents. That's not the right name for it, but I was part of the command staff for responses to major emergencies. I live in the city. I've always lived in the city. I lived in the city when I had a job in Salem. I lived in the city when I had a job in Lebanon. And here I am to this day. But at the time, we were concerned, early on when we were working on emergency management stuff about 20 years ago, we were concerned about earthquakes primarily and what would happen to the bridges when, if there was an earthquake. And we chose members of the emergency response team who lived on this side of the river, because those bridges will come down. The bridges over the freeway will come down. We were looking for people on this side who could respond in person to City Hall to manage the emergency. That's not necessary any longer unless you're a first responder. And even then, first responders work in shifts. They don't all show up at the same time. For people who are extremely concerned about individual liberties and the pursuit of happiness and so on and so forth, to dictate where someone can live as a condition of employment is unfair. I think it's unreasonable to expect that. And as the city manager pointed out, we have a recruiting problem with every position that we have open. We need to take into account that we're not just hiring a person to pay them to do a job, we're hiring them. That pay will enhance their quality of life and their family life. And if they have established a home in another place that's close enough so that they can respond to do the job that they're hired to do, fine. Yes, the city department heads are at a higher level of responsibility, and they have a responsibility to be available as required, but most of them are not involved in emergency management, for example. And if there is an emergency in their department, they're available by electronically. Everybody is available electronically now. You don't have to be physically present to accomplish the work that needs to be done all the time. I think it's unreasonable to expect people to live on a certain side of a line in order to get a job and to keep the job. That's my opinion. I choose to live where I do because it's 4 miles from downtown. And I'm not a good commuter. And I love my neighborhood, so I'm happy there. But I can understand why other people want space around them. They may want to be close to their other family members in another community. I get that. I think that's okay. And I think it's time to make a change.
Council, another counselor have comment?
Yeah, that's a good argument, thank you.
So Counselor Kopsinski, do you have anything for us this evening regarding this matter?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, Ray.
No, I think it's very apropos that the resolution be passed the way it's been written. I fully concur with the discussions already made by the city manager and Councilor Smith.
So I have a few comments. As a business owner and the business I'm in, I deal with people all over the United States every day. With the technology we have, with the skill sets that I have, my team has, we're able to service our clients in 17 different states from Albany, Oregon. And I was of the mindset originally of the department heads working in the city, but after going through what we did last year and earlier this year, I do believe that we should repeal it, and that's just my position on it. And I know that our directors, most of them do live within the city, and those that don't, they're like Marilyn said, Councilor Smith said, have a stable family environment which fits their particular needs. They do a great job for us, and everyone that Peter hires should be held accountable through their job performance, no matter where they are. And so that's my comment. So is there a motion?
I would move for the adoption of the resolution.
Does that have a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I hear the motion again?
The motion is to, excuse me, sorry, learning. The motion is to adopt the resolution
As written.
as written, and there was a first and a second. I believe there was a second.
I think it was Councilor Bartholomew, I think. Did you second it? Councilor Smith.
Johnson moved and Smith seconded. Thank you.
So all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye.
May I do a roll call vote for the
Roll-
record?
Please do a roll call vote.
Olson,
No.
Novak,
No.
Bartholomew,
Yes.
Kopsinski,
Yes.
Cops-
Johnson,
Here, yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 4-2.
Motion passes. Award of bids, Periwinkle Basin retrofit SQ-21-04, Chris Serlint-Kirkluski. I'll get it right. Thanks, sorry about that. And then B would be Airport Road Waterline WL-21-04, Chris Serluski, pages 81 through 84 and 77 through 80. Staff, would you please report?
Thank you. Good evening. Sir Kluski, just for the record.
Okay, thank you. I should ask before.
The first contract that's before you tonight is the recommended award for SQ 2104, the Periwinkle Stormwater Quality Retrofit Project. We recommend to the, it keeps cutting out, recommend awarding to the low bidder, Pacific Excavation, $600,435. They were the lowest of bids received for the project. Project is providing stormwater treatment off-site of 3 recent street projects, 2 sections of Hill Street constructed in the last couple years, 24th Avenue, which is under construction right now. Stormwater improvements weren't constructed on those the individual projects because of right-of-way limitations and proximity of driveways close to that precluded putting in our standard curbside facilities. Maybe just mention another benefit of this project is that it treats a much larger area than just those three projects. So there are or expected cost savings in the future that other projects within the Periwinkle Storm Basin would be able to use this facility instead of having to construct their own facilities or in places where facilities are not, like these projects, were not feasible due to existing conditions. Have any questions? I can answer those.
So the original request was for 500,000, and which one did we accept? So which one do you accept, the lowest bidder?
Pacific Excavation. Page 79.
379.
Page 79.
79.
I got 79. So which one did we decide to go with?
Pacific Excavation was the low bidder.
680,000. Okay,
And
so
why-
the estimate was 505. Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, council?
I do have one question. I'm just curious as to how the engineer's estimate can be so much lower than the lowest bid that comes in. To me, that was kind of a significant difference financially, and I was just curious about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple things right now. The cost of everything construction related is the roof. Hearing myself here.
Excuse me, you have an echo?
Yeah, I'm getting an echo here. So the one thing is just the cost of materials is way up because a lot of construction projects that had been delayed during the pandemic got let loose all at the same time. Price of lumber going crazy. Same thing as steel, concrete, the whole thing. The other thing is that we hadn't done this type of project before. And so while pretty accurate numbers for the material costs for these large vaults involved, there was uncertainty as to installation cost of those, and that's where the disparity was. The disparity is all in the cost of these three large vaults that are in the project. And so I think it's just, the project is in a confined space, and so I think that is just the installation, just the excavation and installation of them is complicated than we were hoping. But again, we didn't have any projects to compare it to. All the stuff that we were more familiar with, honestly, those businesses were right what we expected. So,
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
right.
And I also understand about skyrocketing prices.
Yeah.
So Councilor Smith had a great question.
We have the money available to cover the difference, is that correct?
Yes.
And so I agree with you. I talked to several people about the cost of materials. The mayor of Sweet Home owns a hardware store, and he was talking about the price of plywood, and I almost fell out my chair. So I definitely understand why the numbers are that way. Councilor Olson? Councilor Johnson, sorry.
Yeah, I just got more of a comment on that very same thing with what we just passed about the fee and everything like that. I think this is a good example, even though it's coming out of the Public Works Fund, and that's, different than general fund. It's an example of the costs that go up, and the city doesn't receive any more funds. And so that is one of the reasons that we had to do what we did. And so I can appreciate the engineer's estimate, and I know we've dealt with Pacific Excavation before, so I'm glad to see that we have someone that we've worked with before. So, there's nothing much we can do. At least it's not, look at that. It's $500,000 difference. That is something from the high to the low bid.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So that's all you have?
If there's any other questions.
We have one more question here with Councilor Olson.
Would it be feasible to put this project off until the cost of materials goes back down? Or is this something we have to do right now?
You could delay it. The long-term trend has been that construction materials costs go up faster than the base inflation rate due to various forces. So I think if we delayed things, my guess, I guess my professional, if you call it that, is that the price would be the same, potentially higher if we put it off, just because the overall trend, unless there was a major recession or something happened, which is inevitable at some point just in the business cycle, but there's no way to predict those things happen.
I heard a comment on the news this morning that now that we're getting back in business, everybody's dashing to buy stuff and the price of everything is shot up. And they're seeing some things are over the hump and they're coming back down. Now, maybe I heard a wrong report, but it made sense to me that panic buying does happen and the prices come back down to a reasonable amount. Again, I'll ask, is this something we need to do right now? Or would we be jeopardizing something if we waited 6 months or a year to do it?
I don't think there's immediate risk of anything happening other than we built the road projects that are supposed to have stormwater treatment on them that we didn't do. So we kind of deferred those improvements with the idea of doing this.
So I have
See
a
Stacy getting
question.
closer. So, yeah.
I have a question. So being a former project manager and everything I did before I got into what I do now, so is this like a pathway to something else getting started? Like critical path to something else getting started? That this project will complete to do this next project? So, because you have a work list, right? You guys have a project list, and it falls in line with what your plans are?
No, the other projects are completed, and in effect, this project is part of those other 3 projects.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Right.
So those other projects got done. Now it's time for this one to get done. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello? Oh. So good evening, council. If I could add something to also consider is we did get 6 bids for this project, which is a great response for a project of this size, especially with the schedule. And so that was another consideration when Chris and I were reviewing the bids. You know, there was a large disparity between the low bid and the high bid, but as Chris mentioned, when we looked at the individual bid items, where the cost increase was in the specialty items, so those large vaults, it was for the installation cost is what we suspect. And so delaying the project, I think it would be risky. Prices could continue to go up. As far as the requirement to construct the project within a certain timeline, you know, we have delayed construction of the stormwater treatment for the 3 street projects that this will meet the requirement for. The city is in the process of applying for our stormwater permit that we've been in front of council talking about. And so, you know, there is some urgency just to meet permit requirements as well.
Thank you. Counselors, anything else?
No, that's good.
Okay. Is there a motion, council?
I would move
This is
that
for the
we-
first one. Is there a motion?
I would move that we award the bid to Pacific Excavation, Inc.
Second.
Yeah, we have a second, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is Counselor
Aye.
Stupinski? Aye, oh, that's Counselor Stupinski. Motion passes. Thank you. And on the next one, the Airport Road Water Line, L21-04, on pages 81 through 84, please.
Yeah, so on this, we're recommending that council award track for this project in the amount of $305,533 to the low bidder, Jesse Rodriguez Construction of Silverton, Oregon. This project is going to construct about 450 feet of water line on Airport Road, intersection of Pacific Boulevard and Airport Road. This project is being done result of ODOT project that's going to reconstruct the signal at the intersection, and they're going to redo the geometry on the corners. Existing water line is going to be underneath new road construction, and given the age and its depth, that we're pretty confident it's going to be damaged if we didn't do anything. And then we old, busted, and then repaired water line under a brand new highway that we'd have to fix in the future. So it was timely to replace ahead of their project. There were a total of 6 bids, once again, on this project. I believe this one is also slightly over the engineer's estimate, although one being a water line project, I bumped my estimate. So I think this is a good, at the same time, like you said, costs for everything have gone up here. I guess on the similar issue, this one can't be delayed because ODOT is requiring us to move our water line by this October, so that
By October?
But it's like October 21st, they want us done so they can build the project, so.
Thank you. Council, any questions for Chris?
Have we done business with Rodriguez Construction in the past? That's a name that I haven't seen, I don't remember seeing before.
Me too.
They've bid projects in the past, but they, at least my time with the city, they haven't gotten a project. But the name and the company are familiar, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anything else? Do we have, is there a motion?
I move that we award the contract to Jesse Rodriguez
Second?
Construction.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 That's right. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you very much for your presentation this evening.
All right,
And
thank
I'll
you.
get your name right. I'll get your name right. All right, number 7, approval of exemption from competitive bidding Zoll defibrillators by Shane Wooten, Chief Shane Wooten, pages 85 and 86. I think we talked about this at work session. Yeah. So, Chief?
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. So before you is a request for us to purchase 6 Zoll heart monitors off of a competitively bid contract put out by the League of Oregon Cities. And if you wouldn't mind and indulge me, I'd love to explain a little bit. Sorry, sometimes when you turn your head side to side, it cuts out. I'd like to just take a minute and explain what you're doing. So when we talk about a heart monitor, think of a toolbox or something about the size of a toolbox. And that toolbox not only does it interpret your heart rhythm, so we're able to put patches on and see what your heart rhythm. We also do 12 lead EKGs with that, so we're able to depict or see if a heart attack is happening using that monitor. And then at that point, that can actually determine whether or not, or determine what hospital we go to. It also acts as a pacer. So if sometimes people's heart rate drops really low and they're unable to maybe maintain consciousness or mentation, we're able to put on patches that we're able to set what your heart rate should be, and then the machine delivers small shocks at that rate, so we're able to get your heart rate to where it needs to be. It is also a pulse oximeter, so it measures the amount of oxygen that's in your bloodstream. And it also, sometimes when someone's unconscious, we have to put a tube down into their throat and breathe for them. This monitor also has the ability to where we put a device on the end of the tube, and it's to measure the amount of carbon dioxide that you're exhaling, we're ventilating for you. Our current monitors do that, but like any bit of technology, they're only serviced for so long. So the monitors that we're taking out of service are 12 years old and no longer are supported by the manufacturer. So we're in a position where we have to replace heart monitors. We have the money in our equipment replacement fund, and that's how we intend on paying for it. So I'll answer any questions if you have it.
There is trade-in value, right?
There is trade-in value of
Probably
only
not much.
$1,200 a
Yeah,
monitor.
I figured that. Yeah,
$1,200 a monitor, and then with monitors, we're going to give them to Halsey Rural Fire Protection District. They are, they have even previous generation monitors that hire somebody to try to keep them going. And so we're just going to try to help them out, give them 2 monitors.
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Chief?
No, but I just would like to say on behalf of
Microphone.
myself and fellow heart patients,
Mhm.
I'm all behind it.
Me too. Me
That-
too.
That's a remarkable piece of equipment. If it does
It is,
all
and that's why it's $34,000 apiece.
Yeah, yeah,
And they should be.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I would move for the adoption of the resolution approving exemption from competitive bidding requirements through a contract with the League of Oregon Cities, the lead contracting agency for National Purchasing Partners, NPP, and Zoll Medical Corporation, and authorizing the fire chief to enter into a contract with Zoll Medical Corporation not to exceed $201,200 to purchase heart monitor defibrillators.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
So did you vote against, Counselor Kopsinski?
No, I'm voting for it.
Okay, you just delayed then. All right, thank you very much. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Adoption of the next item is item number 8, adoption of the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
I'd like to hear about the items in number F.
Foxtrot? Okay.
Adoption of resolution.
You want it removed or you want to just hear about it?
I'd like to hear about a couple of them.
Okay, so adoption of the resolution, item F in your consent calendar, number 1 is mass repeal of the outdated resolutions,
Yep.
118, page 118 through 120, granting and accepting right-of-way dedication Oak Street, north of 9th Avenue, ST-09-03, Gordon Steffensmeyer, page 121 to 125, granting and accepting right-of-way dedication Oak Street south of 9th Avenue, ST-09-3, Gordon Steffensmeyer, page 126 to 129, and accepting ARPA funds for Albany Municipal Airport, Rob Romeo, page 130 to 131. So which one would you like to hear first?
I'd like to talk about the mass resolutions, mass repeal of the resolutions.
Good afternoon, counselors. That's an item that I put on the agenda.
And the one that's a little ways,
118, page 118 where it starts.
yeah, page 120. Number 2845, it's a motion to read ordinance a second time assumes an emergency. Are we getting rid of the emergency idea, or what's going on with that one?
Wait a minute, I'm lost.
You know, if we-
2845,
if we
motion
had
to
these
read and- yeah.
resolutions to look at that you want us to throw out, it would make it easier to throw them out.
There's a lot of them on here.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
We made a decision some time ago to not automatically include an emergency clause on every ordinance. We made the change to include an emergency clause only if there's a true emergency.
That's
So
before
is
my
that,
time.
is that 1989? Is that
No,
what
no, that change was.
Oh,
when
about
was that
3 years
enacted?
ago.
A
About
couple
two,
years ago.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
I haven't heard it. It was before my time then, because I haven't heard it.
It became a contentious topic with.
Counselor
previous
Smith,
counselors.
excuse me for interrupting,
Sorry.
but they can't
No,
hear you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know. I
We
remember
don't
that.
automatically include an emergency clause in ordinances any longer. We haven't done that for a couple of years. The most recent one that we did with an emergency clause was the city services fee because we were up against a budget deadline. But typically, we used to have the emergency clause on all of our ordinances so that they took effect on passage. and now it's 30 days, unless it's a true emergency. So this, that, we've taken that action. This is an old resolution that had to do with that a long time ago.
This is actually a resolution, yes, from 1989, so it's very, very outdated. We haven't been doing it for many, many years. And we haven't been doing this for many years. And then, like Councilor Smith said, a few years ago, the council decided to change the protocol for using
So we're still going to
emergencies.
require ordinances to be read twice
Yes.
at consecutive meetings.
Yes,
Yes.
Unless
correct.
we decide to read them twice in the same meeting, emergency or not.
That has no impact
Yeah.
on this, yes. That's
We
correct.
used to think it ought to be an emergency if we're going to adopt them the same night, which I think is correct, but Councilor Callum didn't like that.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're good?
And, no, item 3702 has to do with public notice posting. And we're going to repeal that. And it was instituted in 1996. Are we still going to post, have postings for things like zone changes and
Land use, yeah.
street vacations, that kind of thing, or are we getting rid of those?
Yes, we'll continue to post according to state law, and actually, we're more generous than state law in all the areas. This particular public notice posting talked about posting at Two Rivers Market, which we don't even have a key to anymore, that sort of thing. So it's just a
I
very,
don't think your microphone's working. So what are we getting rid of?
we are no longer posting at places like Two Rivers Market, but we will be deferring to state law for posting in it, and we also, for public notices and published notices in different departments, we far exceed the state law. This particular resolution is from 1996, and so, for example, we used to post notices at Two Rivers Market, and this just removes the requirement to do that sort of thing. It's just an outdated resolution that we're no longer doing it, and since we came across it and it made sense to just remove it altogether, we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're posting according to the law and more than the law, just not at specific places that are not
Okay.
required.
Thank you.
So is there a place, I'm just asking for my own personal benefit. So is there a list of venues where you do post stuff publicly? Library, courthouse, those kinds of things?
We post at City Hall. We've been taping them to the window because City Hall has been locked, but we're going to be moving that inside to, inside the display case. We post online. Without getting too detailed, the posting that we do already are, if you looked at the letter of the law, we're doing far above that already. This just removes the really outdated requirements that we had imposed on ourselves and are no longer valid.
You still posted the
Any other questions? Any other
Oh,
comments?
yes, items 2 and 3 have to do, again, with dedicating property for Oak Street at 9th. And earlier in the meeting, we decided that we were going to give the piece of property back, and I think that's what item number F2 is talking about, isn't it?
We didn't talk about that earlier in the meeting.
No, this is a
This is
different
something
piece of
different.
property.
Oh.
Is that a different
okay.
piece of property?
Yes.
Yeah, these are different. I didn't see these earlier in the packet.
Oh.
Yeah, if I may.
Well, the Ron
So let's,
Irish was
she's
talking
there,
about it.
Stacy's there.
Yeah, if I may, Counselor Olson, I can try to clarify. These are basically housekeeping items. So when Oak Street was constructed and extended from Queen to Highway 20, we purchased property from two owners
Right.
to construct the road, and a portion of the property that was purchased was just never converted into right-of-way, even though it's city-owned. And so that's what this
Yeah, and that's
address.
what Ron Ayers was talking about earlier. We gave it back. Thank you.
No, it's a different piece
It-
of property on
Oh,
the
I
other
don't
side
think
of
so.
Oak Street.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a different piece of
Well, there's
property.
two different pieces of property on Oak Street, and they're on both sides of that.
Yeah, I think what Ron discussed earlier with council, it pointed out these two properties that staff needed to address, and so that's why they were added to
Okay,
the
thank
consent calendar.
And number 4, what's going on with at the airport with the ARPA funds? Do we know about that?
So there's Rob Romeo, airport
Yeah.
manager's here.
Okay.
Yeah, Rob Romeo will address that item.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what's going on there.
May I, before we move on to the next topic, just make a suggestion regarding the postings? I know, Mary, you've said we're going above and beyond what the state requires, but I just want to submit to you all that I think it might be worthwhile to continue posting something on the outside of the building where individuals would be able to see it. I know you're saying you're going to move that indoors, and the reason I'm suggesting that is on behalf of individuals, perhaps like Mr. Hyde. I don't know him, I haven't met him, but I know there are individuals in this town, based on conversations we've had in other meetings, that don't necessarily have easy access to internet. So while we consider that sort of thing now, posting in a public place, to be very old-fashioned and no longer having any real value, I would submit to you that there is still a segment of our population that it would serve to have notices published where they can see them. And
Yes.
I would really, it breaks my heart to think that we might, not make some sort of public posting available for individuals who don't have easy access to internet. I don't, is it too much trouble that we might keep them on the outside window? That's really helpful, I think.
Actually, we agree wholeheartedly that we want to provide paper copies to, not just internet access, for that very reason. We used to, before the pandemic, before City Hall was locked, we used the display case in this great hall right out here.
Right.
When City Hall was open, and that we would put the public notices there. So it would be a matter of coming in inside and looking at them. Staff can go back and talk about also posting them or posting them instead on the window. It just is a little bit, we would have to talk about that, so we could talk to Peter about that. But regardless, there will be an agenda, paper agenda posted at City Hall in a location where folks can come in to City Hall and see it, regardless of where it ends up. It will be here. We used to do that in the past, and we're going to do that going forward.
I appreciate that. I guess maybe I misunderstood. I thought you were saying you weren't going to do any
This-
postings like that.
this-
I did hear
yeah.
you say inside.
Yeah. This resolution, the old resolution talked about locations that we no longer have easy access to.
Understood.
But we'll always post at City Hall.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much, Mary. City Clerk. Councilor Olson had questions about number 4, the accepting ARPA funds.
Yeah. Good evening, Councilor, or Mr. Mayor and councilors, staff. I'm here to ask for acceptance of the American Rescue Plan Act funds for the Albany Municipal Airport. We recommend the council authorize the application for the acceptance of ARPA funds in the amount of $32,000 for the operation and maintenance of the Albany Airport, Municipal Airport. The federal government, the ARPA, is approved in response for the COVID-19 pandemic, includes funding for many airports across the country. The Federal Aviation Administration developed allocations for various categories of airports, which result in $32,000 being set aside for Albany Municipal Airport. ARPA funds will be paid to the city on a reimbursement basis and require no local match. So staff recommends that the council approve the application for these funds, which will be used for operational expense. These funds will be available to be drawn down in future years until they are fully expended and can be used for payment of utility bills, routine operational expenses, and routine maintenance costs. So I think it's a great opportunity for Albany Municipal Airport to use the funds. So.
Any questions for?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Let me clarify that this is not, these funds have nothing to do with the $8.5 million that you're going to consider later this month. Okay, so this is a different part of the American Rescue Plan Act than the city allotment.
Does that help?
That
does help. Any councils have anything else?
And how are things going at the airport in general?
Great. Just, we got a lot of projects going. Come back later this month and ask for approval of the AWAS grant. So
we did receive the grant?
We've received it. Now we just have to get your approval, and we'll do that at the next meeting. We've got some projects, so there's some to take care of, so.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
So,
Thank you.
so, is there any other discussion about this consent calendar? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'd move for the adoption of the consent calendar as presented, the whole thing.
The whole thing? Any,
Seconded.
we have a second. Thank you, Counselor Johnson.
Yes, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is business from the council, and I'll start with my esteemed colleague, Counselor Johnson.
Okay, thank you. I just had a couple things. Just wondered if we have, Peter, do we have any firefighters going out with all the fires breaking out all over the state? Do we have any out?
We certainly do, and I'll give you an update on Friday, but Chief Wooten is here to
Okay.
address any questions you might have.
Yes.
Yes, so right now, or actually, up to today, there's been 5 conflagrations in the state of Oregon. The biggest right now, the largest fire is the Bootleg fire down outside of Cay Falls. We have only one individual on that fire as part of the incident management team. Chief Scott Cowan is that person. And then another fire that's happening right now with resources is the Grandview fire, which is outside of Sisters.
Yes.
And on that fire, we have somebody on the incident management team helping, as well as we have one of our brush trucks there helping put out the fire. Ironically, some of you may appreciate this. I've been getting morning text messages from Jim Delaport
I wondered about
asking for status updates on what's happening with the fire.
Oh.
He lives over in that area.
Yes, he does. I was thinking about him today, yeah.
And so another fire that I'll kind of just make you aware of, because it's close, is the Bueller fire, which is up outside Detroit. The incident management team that's managing that is based out of, or they're stationed, they set up their command post at Sweet Home High School, and went up there and introduced myself. I'm acting Lynn County Fire Defense Board Chief, so representing all the fire departments in Lynn County. And so you might see some smoke billow up from the mountain in that direction. Right now, all the fire is located solely on Forest Service lands, and they are, at least what we were told today when we went and talked to the incident commander, they have resources on it. They're trying to put it out the best they can, but it is one of those fires, like a lot of wildland fires, that burn until the rain. And even that, sometimes the fire can hold over time, and you can have smoldering debris even after a winter.
Yeah.
So, but they do have the fire up outside of Detroit lined, which means they have, they'll use roads or bulldozers and create a perimeter, a fire line around the fire, and then can start burning off of, it's called back burning. They start burning debris from that line that they've created, so the fire that they've created meets up with the fire from the forest, and then it goes out.
Okay.
So essentially, take away
Burn
the
up the
fuel.
fuel,
Yep. So that was a long-winded
That's okay.
to
I
say, yeah,
appreciate all
we do
the
have people out right
information,
now.
so-
And it's only July. This is usually the type of conditions we see in August.
Yes,
And it seems like, we're about a month early on all this.
yes, we are, and just hope and pray that, Lions, Detroit, and Mill City don't have to go through it again.
Yep.
So thank you, Chief.
And please let your
Appreciate it.
staff, the firefighters and managers know that they have our support and that we
Yes.
hope they stay safe out there when they're fighting fires.
Some of them are watching right now, so you just told them that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Chief. I appreciate it. Is that all you had, Counselor?
I had one other thing. I heard on the news this morning, and maybe, I'm sure Peter will update us on it, but that it used to be called the MPO. Now apparently it's MSA. They are staying at 50,000 and not going up to 100,000. I think they must have received enough complaints that they finally listened. So I think this is good news for us and all the cities that are just right over the cusp. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Bartholomew. Actually, let me go across the room. Councilor Novak.
Okay. Well, I was greatly moved by the gentleman who showed up tonight to tell us about his situation and how $9 will impact his budget. And I know I made this impassioned plea at the last meeting, and I also said my words tonight about how I feel that department heads should be subject to the same things. Well, there's a world of difference between someone who's making, I don't know, $100,000, and forgive me because I don't know your salaries, and someone who's barely hanging it together. I just want to note again for the record that I was standing for individuals such as Mr. Hyde and others that I have met since I've become a counselor, and some who I haven't met, who have contacted me by letter, by phone. I just want to submit to you all that when I literally begged for even a 1-month deferral on this fee being implemented, I believe with all my heart it makes a difference for people like this. And I believe that one gentleman showing up tonight at City Hall is representative of more individuals than you may perhaps have considered when you were denying even a 1-month stay. I know you gave him a card and, maybe he'll get some help, but I can't help but think about all the people who aren't in this room right now, whose situations I'm aware of. And zillions, I'm sure, not zillions, I'm sorry, I'm a little prone to hyperbole, you may have noticed, I don't. But I just am aware of a lot of hurting people. And I would hope in the future that maybe you'd give a little grace, a little, just like even a little bit, if we have decisions like this. I mean, I'm hoping things are going to change markedly for the good, and soon. I hope that with all my heart. I know there are many people like that gentleman. And that's all I'll say right now. There's another situation I wanted to mention, but I've already talked long enough, so thank you.
Councilor Novak, you got something to say?
Yeah,
say
we
it,
got
please.
time. Go ahead.
Nobody's in a hurry.
Okay, well, there's just a gentleman who wrote me, and he wrote Councilor Kopczynski and you, Mayor, and I told him that I would try to bring this before you tonight, maybe in business of the council, and then when that gentleman spoke, I just felt like I wanted to respond. So I'll be as quick as I can here. There's a gentleman, I can't see his last name, Mike. His name is Mike, forgive me. And he did reach out to the mayor and Councilor Kopczynski. He said, a few years back, the city took possession of the cul-de-sac on the west end of 33rd Avenue that borders the apartment complex parking lot at 730 32nd Avenue Southeast. He says, My Hughes, H-E-W-S, the owner of the apartment complex, was paid to move the dumpster out of the cul-de-sac to his property and enclose it. The enclosure was never built, and now the chain that closed the entrance from his lot to 33rd Avenue have been removed. This is causing a heavy traffic flow down the street that is not designated for it. The street is not wide enough for parked cars and traffic to pass now that it is in both directions. The street surface is also not as heavy as a normal street in the thickness, and this is going to cause the street surface to deteriorate faster. Not only do the tenants of the complex exit down 33rd Avenue, but traffic driving west now exits through the parking lot. This includes big delivery trucks. One would think this alone would cause Mr. Hughes to replace the chain or install a heavier gate that the tenants could not remove. We have heard he placed his dumpster at the 33rd Avenue side to prevent the trucks from doing damage to his parking lot. This fact also concerns the folks here, as it makes for an extra huge garbage truck once a week to empty his dumpster. All the folks living here I have spoken to are weary of the higher than normal speed, the huge increase of cars, and the all-night noise caused by the drive into the lot being opened. We would like the city to look into the past understanding that some kind of property rule or deal when the city complex was built, restricting the south parking lot entrance from the cul-de-sac at the end of 33rd Avenue Southeast. He says, being how I work at the city, the neighbors have somehow made me the contact person on these issues. We sincerely hope the city will address these issues. And then I thanked him for bringing it to my attention, and he said, the cul-de-sac was never acquired by the city back when the apartments were constructed, and as private property became a trash dump zone. So after much to-do, the city acquired it as city property. The main issue is traffic. Our street is not as wide, nor has the top overlay that 32nd Avenue does, so, forgive me, I'm reading word for word, was never intended to have the huge inflow of traffic that we now have since the apartment drive was opened up. The dumpster issue is a holdover from the last time we went to the council, never really fixed. And then he mentioned having not heard back from anyone yet, except for me, and I promised him I'd do my best to bring it before you all.
And I haven't responded, I've been a little busy with.
I know you are very busy, sir. I just am,
Yeah, so I'll get back to him.
okay, thank you, good. Maybe he's watching, maybe he sees that, and I'm glad you will. Thank you.
I'm gonna fly back across the room, this Councilor Bartholomew.
Thank you. I'm interested in finding out more. about-
Microphone,
Microphone,
Oh, can you hear me?
now,
a little louder.
You can hear me?
No.
keep going.
I'm talking into the mic?
Yes.
Okay, there,
Yes.
okay.
There you go.
I'm interested in finding out more about the Affordable Housing Task Force and what's happening in there. I've had some people contact me who are interested in it, and I haven't heard much. I know it's supposed to be happening, and I'd like to make sure it's moving forward.
So Matt Druckers and I will be bringing something back probably next council meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
It's been busy. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Is that all, Councilor?
And I appreciate the moment of silence at the beginning. There's been quite a few people, not just those two gentlemen, but others that have passed away recently, and it's had somewhat of an impact on our community, so I appreciate that, so thank you.
Amen.
Councilor Kopczynski, you're next up.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes.
You can hear me. Okay. I'm calling you from Jamestown, New York. It's way past my bedtime. But we are here, and obviously what I'm saying has nothing to do with city business, but I'm enjoying the heck out of myself. But there's been some glitches with my setup, trying to get it to work. Some of the sound is being in and out, I think based on the same types of things that have been going on at the meeting too. The mic's not being real close to people's mouth, but that'll be overcome, not a problem. And all of a sudden now, all I'm seeing is my face up in the top corner, and I don't see the dais or anything. So I'm sure I'm not talking to a mirror or what, but it's all good. I'm happy to be here, and I hope to be a couple weeks yet, and I'll be back. So, and I did hear anecdotally, I was sent a quick text. The coup d'etat has occurred that the superintendent of GAPS has been fired tonight.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Thank you for that.
Well, I have.
Is that it? Is all you have, Counselor? Thank you. Counselor Olson?
Yeah. I want to say it's good to be back in City Hall rather than looking at the TV screen. And I'm wondering, do the people in the back, have you been able to follow everything that's gone on tonight? Have you been able to hear and see okay? Okay, well, good.
The lady said no.
I had a little trouble with some of the sound, but I think it's probably due to my aging hearing aids and my even more aging ears. So I'm glad things are working well.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Smith.
Counselor Smith has a short list. We have had some correspondence from two individuals in the last couple of weeks regarding our efforts to create an Americans with Disabilities Act transition plan. And I sent email earlier to Peter and Stacy and asked if we could get that on the whiteboard as a discussion topic for a report in the near future. Another item that I would like to mention, I had a phone call and an email from constituents in my ward regarding fireworks, the 4th of July. And the concerns about effects on veterans with PTSD, for example, concerns about pets, concerns about noise, reports of kids setting lawns on fire with fireworks and sparklers and whatnot, considering the conflagrations, the overall weather, that the heat wave, everything is dry, everything is tinder and kindling, and we have other people who just have had enough of neighborhood pyrotechnics. I hadn't seen fireworks in my neighborhood, for example, like I saw on the 4th of July since I was a kid living in Harrisburg watching the firefighters shoot them off over the Willamette River. Great community event, but it was controlled and the weather was wetter in those days. And it belongs in a community venue, not in individual neighborhoods. I would like us to consider potentially, I don't know if it's this year or if it's next year before the nonprofits start ramping up plans to sell fireworks for their big fundraising events. But I think the time has come for us to consider a regional fireworks ban for residential recreational use. That's sue me, but I really think that might be important. I'd love to see a community event like we've had in the past. I don't know that that's even possible any longer, but it's something to think about.
Yes.
So I'm just dropping that in your lap. I also wanted to mention that just based on our conversations this evening, I appreciate the opportunity to express my opinions, even though they don't always mesh with everybody else's. And I think we can all say that. I appreciate the civilized discourse that we're capable of having with each other.
Amen.
And we're still able to accomplish moving forward with cities. So thank you for listening to me. That's it.
That's it. Well, thank you. I have a couple things, or a few things. One, the fireworks. I received a lot of emails about fireworks as well. And so Matthew Harrington set Chief up and I, and was it Davis, Officer Davis? Dan Jones, I'm sorry. With the public safety, we did a public safety announcement on the city's Facebook page. And I don't know what got more laugh. The outtakes were brilliant. So thank you for doing that, Matthew. I laughed myself, and it was me getting laughing myself. So I think that's something we should probably do as a matter of business, as putting things out to people so they know what's going on in the city. And so whether it be the city manager, myself, or one of the staff members doing that, I think that's very helpful because a lot of people watch what we do on social media. So we should continue to do that. The fireworks thing is, in my neighborhood, we had a fireman that lived across the street from me for several years. And so basically he would order us to water our grass, keep a hose and a bucket of water out on the street. So that's how we do it every year since that time. We did have, we've had a loss of life for one of our public servants or commissioners, a volunteer named Chuck Kaiser. Chuck was a good friend of mine and a business owner and someone that I respected a great deal. And I was saddened to hear, to be there when I was with the wives when the accident had occurred and emergency services were dispatched. So I'm hoping that people that knew of him, would be willing to come out and participate in his celebration of life on August 1st at Timberland Park at noon. And other than that, the carousel was swamped this weekend, and so it was really good to see the kids happy and smiling. And a happy dad sent me a picture of one of the kids I gave a token to of his daughter with her arms raised, just grinning like a Cheshire cat. And so it made me feel really, really good. And so I'm starting a notebook in my office to keep those. And other than that, I thank you all for being here tonight. This is our first go of this in 16 months or 17 months. We made some mistakes. I've made some mistakes, but I think we're going to get better as we do this. And thank you, staff, for being here this evening. And now we're going to adjourn to executive session. Oh, excuse me. We have to do the city manager first?
Yes, sir, and it's not long at all. I was just going to commend Matthew and yourself and Holly for putting together a media campaign that worked very well. If you look at the bands that you saw in the region, I think our media outreach effort worked just as well as the bands that you saw. With respect to the mics, I've gotten a few texts that it's hard to hear some of you all, so you do have to, I think it's common practice to look at your screen, but you have to get used to having your mouth in front of your mic and have your screen to the side. We'll work on the sensitivity of the mics and try to make them a little bit more so they can pick up from a little further away.
Okay.
And then lastly, the complaint that Councilor Novak mentioned, that Matthew Rutgers will be looking into that tomorrow, that it'll be the one that you talked about, the cul-de-sac. Okay? And that's all I have, Mayor.
That's all you have? Now we're going to adjourn to executive session, recess to executive session to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer in accordance with ORS 192.660, subparagraph 2.I. And I'm going to go to the script now. It says the city council will now meet in executive session for the purpose of review and evaluate the employment-related performance of the chief executive officer in accordance with the ORS 192.660. Representatives of the news media and designated staff and other persons shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other participants must exit. Online audiences will be moved into a waiting room, or they can leave and rejoin the meeting in a few minutes. Your screen will display this message. The message: please wait, the meeting host will let you in soon. When the council returns to open session, participants remaining in the waiting room will be readmitted to the meeting. In-person audience members must leave the council chambers and wait in the hallway. When the regular session reconvenes, staff will open the doors and you can rejoin the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision will be made in this executive session. I now recess the executive session time at 8:11 p.m.
Recording in progress.
If there is any.
Well, it's actually pretty good for a long meeting.
Can you unspotlight?
2.5 hours, that's not
Yeah.
bad at all.
No, it's not bad at all when you start at 6 o'clock.
Right?
Yeah.
I can still
That's,
talk.
that's
I
a
can still-
lifesaver.
I can still
Oh,
talk to
it
my wife.
is.
It's,
It
it's
is.
still daylight. Of course, it's July.
You know,
Thank
be-
you. So we're back on air. Thank you very much for attending this evening. Next meeting dates will
Please
be-
go ahead and reconvene the regular
Oh,
session.
let's go ahead and reconvene the regular session. Thank you, Mary.
At what time?
At 8:40 PM on
Thank you.
14 July 2021. I almost said 19, oh my goodness.
And we're going to take action from the.
Are we going to take action, or do we authorize anything right now as far as what we propose?
You would like to, you are welcome to make a motion now that we are in regular session.
So do we have a motion to provide the increase that we had mentioned during the executive session?
Okay, I would move that we give the city manager, do I state the amount?
Yes.
The 3.5% as an increase for the next year.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
So to be clear, the motion was for a 3.5% increase, and that vote was 6-0.
Yes.
Ray Kupczynski, Councilor Ray Kupczynski, is on a delay, and his vote was yes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion passes. So I think we're done for the evening. Next meeting dates would be Monday, July 26th at 4 PM for a work session here in Chambers, correct? That's awesome. And then Wednesday, July 28th in Chambers at 6 PM. Thank you all for attending this evening and for our first meeting in a year and a half. It didn't go
I
too bad.
know.
It was all right.
Now we have to
You
drive
done great.
home.